Hello, thank you for joining us with Go Business of Charleston. I'm Tiffany Savage, the Vice President.
And I'm Nicole Pringle, the president.
We're here today with Terrance Elmore, who is a poet, a podcaster, an author. And so he's here to talk about his latest book as well as some other projects he's been working on. And one in particular I know I had a glimpse of was his first book, Love Letters, which is right here. So thank you for joining us this evening. I really do appreciate you taking the time to go ahead and share this gift with us. So previous conversations we know you have a lot of good work to share with the world.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So when we first began, I just want to start off by asking you, what's your inspiration for your books, and just, you know, what inspires you to go ahead and produce this great work such as Love Letters in your latest edition?
The so Love Letters is interesting how I kind of got started with that. I was it had reached a period in my life where I really wasn't writing out poems. I still was thinking about them, but I wasn't really writing them out. And I still can't remember if my wife and I were dating or if we were just friends at the time, but I let her know that I had, a poem, in my mind or whatever. And, she was like, oh, okay, cool. And then she asked me one day, she was like, when the last time you wrote a poem? I was like, I got one in my mind. And she was like, oh, that's a good place for it. And I was like, oh. So I felt challenged. And so I finished that poem that day. And I was like, check your email. And so after that, I was like, man, I kind of want to keep writing. And what I intended to be probably like 10 poems, because I wanted to do like a kind of like a sunrise to sunset from like childbirth to getting older and all of that thing. And I was like, it'd probably be about 10 poems. And as I started writing, it just developed into more. And so it's like after I actually wrote that first poem out, it was like a long time since I actually written stuff out. And of course, here and there I would jot down stuff, but I would never really go back and finish it because it's like I have it in my mind. And once I wrote that first poem out, it was like I was wanted more and I wanted to write more. And as I was writing, I was like, I think I should share this. I'm like, you know what? I want to publish this. And so from there, I was like, okay, I nobody knows that I write poetry, and it wasn't like a secret or anything. It's just if we weren't talking about poetry, I didn't bring it up. And so I was like, let me create a blog. So I created the Brown Sugar Cafe blog to kind of get the buzz out there, and I started doing poems every Wednesday. And so once I got into that process, everybody was kind of familiar and was like, oh, okay, you write poetry, and everybody was looking for it. And I stuck in the vein of love because I've been hearing all these negative things about love, how love is painful, love hurts. And, no matter who I talk to, I would ask them, I'm like, okay, so what about love hurts? And they would always name a person. And I'm like, that person hurt you, not love itself. It's like whenever somebody is in a car accident or get hit by a drunk driver, you don't say the car hurt them. It's the person who was driving the car. So whoever was mishandling love or who was operating love, it wasn't, shouldn't have been operating love in your life. They're the person that hurt you, not love itself. And so I wanted to get that message going. It didn't just happen. I just felt the need to put it out there, and I did. And the response I got from it was kind of shocking. When you write stuff or you do anything, you hope people like it, but you don't really realize that they do until they tell you. And it's a humbling experience. And so people were telling me that they, either believed in love again or believed in love for the first time. I had some people say that reading my books helped rekindle some love. And it was such an honor. I was like, man, just think if I had never started writing this or never shared it, well, these people might have missed out, or it might have taken a long time for them to get to that point.
That's awesome.
And that's what I was when I read the book. I was like, who was in love? I said, who is this person that he's in love with? And I'm just reading it. And I'm like, oh, it's very sensual. I was saying earlier, it makes you really want to light a candle, go in your most comfortable area in your house, sit down, snuggle up, and just start reading. Maybe play something light in the background. And I asked you earlier before, What songs were you listening to when you started writing?
So yeah, I was listening to her. I was listening to Daniel Caesar. I think it's Sabrina Claudio Sabrina. I can't remember. Snow Allegra. Even some Drake. It was just music like that. I was listening to SoundCloud because at that time, before like Spotify and all that other stuff kicked off, SoundCloud was like a really good place to find new music. Like you would come across new artists because people would just upload the music there. And so sometimes it was music playing. I didn't really know the artist's name, but I guess like the algorithm or whatever kind of put the music into like, and I built it like a little playlist, but sometimes I would kind of stray off that playlist, but it was always something smooth. Like it had to be something smooth when I was writing that book. And I guess it shows in the in the writing.
It definitely shows. It gives me that, when you're in school and you start, dating somebody, start feeling feelings, and they got this song, and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna start writing, and I'm gonna write a poem, and I'm gonna say something. That's how I feel about this person. That's what I'm like, okay, who is this person? What is going on? That's what it reminded me of. So as a poet, what themes, messages do you find yourself drawn to most in your writing, and how do they influence your work?
I'm on a journey to spread love in a world that seems to be full of hate. And I say seems because if you say it's full of hate, then that means there's no room for love. And so it seems like it, but it's not full of hate. And so the inspiration behind my poetry, well, how I start off with how the poems that I'm sharing is a message of love and a message of hope. Like I want to leave something for somebody to be inspired, whether it's about love or whether it's just about life in general. Sometimes we have goals and dreams that sometimes we may put on the shelf, whether it's intentional or unintentional. And so I want to help rekindle that, that spark again. Like, I was working on this, or I did think about doing this. And my hope is that my poetry or something that I say helps reignite that again. Writing my book for the first time, I've had people reach out to me questions about writing a book, and there were some people who said that I inspired them to actually publish their first book. So that was a really good feeling. It's like whenever you hear stuff like that, you think like, what if I didn't start? Like who else would have missed out by me? And I think of it like being selfish with my gifts, like not sharing it with people. And so that's always like a part of the inspiration too. Like if I don't show up, like somebody else is missing out if I don't show up.
Leads me to another question. Earlier we were talking about how you don't see a lot of Black men openly just talking about their feelings. And so this kind of makes me think about that conversation earlier we had about you just being able to promote your work and share, your work with others is actually influencing another generation of men to talk about this and talk about their feelings, especially within the Black community.
Yeah, that was another reason why I felt like a push to write that first book, because love is not something that you hear men talk about a lot, especially Black men. And so I wanted to show, that we can talk about love, that we do have a caring and nurturing side. It may not always be shown on television or, even in some people's lives, they may not see that, but it's there. And so I wanted to show that.
And so it's kind of, you already tagged one of the questions, but we're going to ask you another thing. What are some other influences when you do a podcast episode? What are some other things you consider, even, when you do your episodes that you want to choose the subjects? What do you think about?
So my first season of my podcast, it started with blog posts. And so I started to do like blog posts outside of my regular poetry blog posts. And so the blog posts were intended to be inspirational. I think my very first blog post might have been meaningful relationships, if I'm not mistaken. And so I took the podcast and kind of made it an extension of what the blog was talking about. And from there, I did a couple of blog posts, and then I just kind of stopped and just kind of started jotting down some key points, and then just turning the microphone on and just recording episodes. And I was like, I kind of need to get some guests, because I mean, I'm sure people probably don't mind if they subscribe just hearing me talk, but I want to give other people's perspectives and other people to share their stories. And some people never had a platform to share their stories, and they have stories to share that can inspire people. Some of my guests have never been on a podcast before, and they were honored that I asked. And so that's another thing. I'm glad I did that, because if I didn't, that person wouldn't have got their stories out. It's even some people who've been on my show that have actually started their own podcast. And so I always think about that. Like, if I don't show up, and somebody's missing out, not just me. And so the inspiration with my podcast is just, man, it could be a Facebook post that I see, a conversation that I'm having, and in that moment, I'm thinking, you know, whatever the viewpoint is, I would like to offer a different viewpoint, something positive in that situation, something that somebody can take from and build on. And so it's still the same thing. It's like centered around love, but more of an inspirational, because I want everybody to be the best version of themselves. I want everybody to, believe in themselves and see that they don't have to, if they feel like they're in a mediocre place or they're not excelling enough or not doing things. I want to inspire people to live better lives and to feel better. And because I just want everybody to be happy.
That's a dope philosophy, especially in these times.
Yeah.
So,
in your experience, how has being a podcaster influenced or complemented your work as an author and poet?
So, well, now that I think about it, I guess it has caused me to record some of my poetry. That's something that I have been thinking about, like with this new book, Paint is Not Our Only Paintbrush. I want to do like an audio version. My first two books, I don't have an audio version. So with this book, I want to do an audio version. I think having a podcast has made it easier for me. I don't have an excuse now. I have the equipment to record. And so that's inspired me to do that. I had a podcast guest on a couple of months ago, and he's an author and poet as well. And he's working on, turning his book into some poems. And I was like, yeah, I really want to do an audio book. And so as far as with my poetry and writing, that has influenced it from there. I did say that I was going to try to turn my podcast episodes into blog posts, kind of do the reverse of how I started. I haven't done that yet. I'm still kind of on the fence about doing it, but we'll see.
So you talked briefly a little bit about it, but how do you balance creating your podcast, writing, and being an author? How do you, what insights did you get on that process? That's a lot of hats to juggle all at the same time.
That's a really good question. So when I was working to finish up this new book, I was on a podcast hiatus. So I try to take like some time out in between seasons so that I can have just some chill time, I guess. But this last time I actually had a project that I was working on. And so that freed up some more time. And when I finished my book and I'm in season 3 now. When I started season 3, I'm kind of off on a slow start because I guess, just trying to still do things with the book, trying to promote the book, and just finding the time to record and get guests on. And so it's just all about, and I found that one of the podcasts I listened to, I actually talked to the people on the podcast. They had, I think it was a podcasting workshop that I just went to. And they were saying like when they record, they have a day set aside to record multiple episodes. And then they just stack them like that. And then they do the editing and stuff. And so it rolls out. I kind of did that a little bit, but still I kind of have like a little bit of a push at the end. It's like, okay, I recorded 2 episodes. I edited 1. I put it out there. Okay, here comes the next one. All right. So I got like a week left to find a guest. And so it's just, I'm still kind of trying to find that balance. I know if I get more structured with trying to do my guest or whatever, but like this season, I don't have any type of pressure like I did with season 2. Season 2, I made a goal to publish an episode every week. And I did that for the whole season. I think I might have skipped Christmas, the week of Christmas, and maybe New Year's. But other than that, I did an episode every week. And so this season is kind of, it may be once a week, it may be twice a week, but it's better than the first season. The first season I was dropping episodes once every month. And so it just depends. You got to have like a structure, you got to have time that you're recording, and you have to make sure that you kind of can work around your guest schedule while still working on your stuff, because you just want to make sure that you have that balance. So I'm just like, if I feel like I'm getting overwhelmed, then I'll just kind of pause, because I do have some episodes kind of stacked up. So it's not that much pressure. It's just really having to edit it and put it out. And then I do the post every Wednesday. So I do have like a dedicated day that I'm still dropping poetry. And so the two don't ever really get in the way of each other. But when I had that hiatus, I just had more time, because I was really trying to get that book out. When I tell you that this last book, just trying to get everything right, yeah.
I know. I want to go back to your new book. Pain is not our only paintbrush. I want to talk about that title, because we talked about it earlier, how you came about it.
So, when I was writing this book, I wanted to have something that was more geared towards men, because, the love poem books, the audience is women. I mean, it wasn't intended that way, but like we said earlier, that's just how it's going to be. And so I was just sitting one day and I was like, man, I need to kind of have something geared towards the fellas, so I could have like, I guess like a male audience, but I didn't want to have like a book just for men, but I wanted to have like that target and it be something for everybody. And so in the process of writing that, I love art. I used to draw and paint. Like, I'm just really into art. And so we went to a art exhibit. I think it was, Martin Luther King holiday, and it was Black American artists. And there were a lot of different like paintings, drawings, sculptures, like just different Black art. And it was refreshing to be in that space. It was like, it gave me like the extra creative push that I needed. And so my wife recorded some stuff and she put together a reel, and it made me want to write a poem. And so I wrote a poem about the experience of being in there. And then in the poem, I said, pain is not our only paintbrush, because before that point, I didn't have a title for my book. I was just writing poems. And I was like, that's it, because my whole thing is I wanted to leave some hope, because after George Floyd was murdered, I was writing some poems to kind of express myself. So some of the poems were like about gentrification and things like that, but my poems lack some hope. And so I wanted to always leave hope in what I'm writing. Like, and I wanted to be like a helpful tool, and not just, me spilling all of my emotions out on the pages. And I was like, that's it. Like, pain is not our only paintbrush. We have beautiful stories. All of our stories don't have to be trauma stories. They don't have to be pain stories. They don't have to be unarmed Black men being killed by the police. Like, we have beautiful stories. We have stories about love. We have stories about families. We have stories about happiness and joy. And so that's what I wanted to show. I wanted to show everybody that Black stories are beautiful and everybody can enjoy them. So these are the stories of happiness and joy and things that aren't painful. Yeah, pain happens. We have things in our life that are painful, but pain is not our only paintbrush. We do paint beautiful pictures. And so that's where that came from.
Yes. And I have to give credit where it's due. So one of the things, the way that you use your art as a creative tool and something unique to you and make it relatable to other people, that is a gift within itself. I applaud you for that. And the way you're using this book, not only share your talent with the world and, just a different artistic insight or component to it, but it's also therapeutic too. Just having discussions that we've had, it addresses a lot of stuff and a lot of stigma and taboo that we just don't talk about. We don't talk about our feelings. And even though we talked about how men, Black men don't talk about their feelings in a way, Black women too as well. Do we actually nurture when we have a Black man in our presence that's confiding in us, telling us their feelings, how they feel at that time? because we're not taught like all the time how you're supposed to handle a situation like that.
Yeah. That's why I'm thankful for my wife, because when George Floyd got murdered, I didn't know how to feel. I was angry, I was hurt, I was upset, and I had seen that sort of thing before. It's like every time you turn on the news, it's on there. And I think that at that time it was like 2 or 3 stories like right before that. And I think it was the fashion in which it happened and the length of time might have been what it was, but I didn't know how to feel. I just know I wasn't okay. And I was able to tell my wife that I wasn't okay. I was like, I'm not good. I don't really have the words to express how I'm feeling, but I'm not good. And she provided a safe space for that. She was like, you don't have to have the words, and it's okay. Just do whatever you need to do. And, I just sat there and I prayed and I thought about it and I prayed. And then the answer I got was right. And so that's what I did. And writing just helped me.
So with writing and the self-expression, how do you find a fine line to make self-expression in your work relatable to people reading?
I'm always trying to draw hope out of whatever I write. I'm always trying to inspire whatever I write. And when I say whatever I write, whatever I'm sharing, because of course I write other type of poems too, but I don't always share them. I'm trying to share poems that like may start off in a way that may show that, it might not be a pretty good day. This is going on, that's going on, but then somewhere in the middle, it brings up all the positive things that's happening and the hope that I'll come out of this, or I've been in this situation before, I made it before, and it's just like any other time. Sometimes we just need that reminder. Things happen, and we're not gonna all face them happy and cheerful, but it's like when certain things happen, it's like we forget that we've been in similar situations and we've gotten out of it. It's just like, man, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And then it's like, man, I've been in worse situations and I got out okay. Like, why am I tripping? So it's just, I want that to be whatever to my reader, like whenever they're reading something, I want them to find some type of hope in it. And even if it's just a reminder, like maybe your day is going great, but you read it and it's just like, reaffirming, like, like, hey, if something does happen, I'm gonna be okay.
Yeah. And this makes me think too, with any type of profession, any type of field you go into, you have challenges. What challenges have you had in this industry in bringing in such a taboo topic, Because a lot of people, they try to bring it in, but they don't continue with it because it's something that's not going to necessarily just take off like that. You have to keep on pushing it. But you have done a great job with your whole branding.
Oh, thank you.
Even with like at the Brown Sugar Cafe, which I told you that's pretty sick. It makes you feel those vibes too. But what challenges have you faced with this industry, and how have you overcome them?
I guess the main challenge that I've had, and it was probably in the beginning, was wondering if anybody would care. Like if anybody would want to hear what I have to say, or getting in my own way and being like, well, this might not be good enough, or maybe people will see it and they don't get what I want them to get out of it. And so I had to get out of that and just think that if I could touch one person, then I've done enough. Like everything is not going to be for everybody. And yeah, we want to be, world changers and everything that we do that everybody resonate with. And I understand that everybody won't. But if I could touch one person, that's what I had to get in my head. Like with my podcast, if I could just touch one person, if one person gets something out of what I said, then I've done my job. And so that was the biggest challenge, is getting out of my own way and turning on the microphone for the first time. Like I used to always hate the sound of my voice, just like anytime I had to speak at something or do something growing up. And so the first time I turned the microphone on to record and I listened to the playback, I was like, man, this is nobody wants to hear me talk about this stuff. But I pushed past that, got it out there, and got all these comments and reviews about it. And I was like, wow, you really enjoyed this. And so getting out of my own way was the biggest challenge, because I'm like, everybody's not going to receive it, and that's cool. But for the people that do, I have to show up.
And you do a good job of it too. Like,
Thank
you
you.
talk about some therapeutic, but
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
this is a challenging topic to talk about. Hey, you need to express yourself,
Yeah.
even though you a black man. You doing a
Yeah,
good job.
yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah. And you know what? My last book signing was at All Good Books, and they had on there that I would be like, it's like a poetry read. And I was like, no, I'm doing a discussion, because my vision for that night, I wanted it to be a discussion, like me talk about the book and maybe read some poems. And it turned into a discussion. It was like everybody was engaged. We were talking about how it is to, grow up with that mentality to walk it off and keep going, and how you're not supposed to express your feelings. And, because we were taught, to be men, you got to be tough. But I think it's harder and it's more challenging to actually express your feelings. Like, I think your true strength comes in your vulnerability and being able to express yourself. And, we talked about not having safe spaces, because some people don't have safe spaces where they can talk about their feelings. And some people have had instances where they thought they had a safe space, but when they expressed themselves, it was thrown back in their face. And so I had the idea, I was like, well, what if, we learn at a younger age to express ourselves? Like, the blow wouldn't be so bad when you finally get there. We have all this stuff build up, and then you're telling somebody for the first time, and then they throw it in your face. It's like you'll shut down after that. And so I wanted to start the conversation to get like ideas and stuff. And then we came up with some good ideas to kind of maybe start like a writing workshop or something like that, to get some young boys involved, like young boys and men involved, and see if we can get the conversation going, about expressing ourselves. Like like with friendships with men, a lot of us, I'm thankful do have that camaraderie where we can talk about how we feel. But a lot of men don't have that, because you don't want to look like a punk in front of your friends or something like that.
Mhm.
But the crazy thing about it is, like, we're all going through something, and you don't want to be in a circle where everybody's just holding it in, because you're not going to be able to tell everything to your wife and your girlfriend. I mean, of course, you not keep secrets, but it's some things that they can never relate to, but we can relate to each other. We've been in situations where we could give somebody advice and be like, well, yeah, I'm going through that too, or I went through that before. And let me tell you how I handle it. But if you're not wanting to talk to the person, or feeling like you can't open up, that's damaging. Because when you build, that stuff builds up and builds up and builds up, it's gonna have to come out at some time. And you don't know when it's gonna come out. You don't know who you're gonna be around when it comes out. And you really don't want it to come out, towards your loved ones, and it's not their fault. They didn't put you in this position. It's just like you just held it in. So creating a safe space and like a place to talk. And I think that writing is therapeutic. And so I'm looking at trying to get something done to where I could do like a workshop with writing to help people express themselves, help boys express themselves. So that's something I'll be looking at sometime this year. But that book signing was everything that I wanted it to be. Like, I wanted it to be like an open discussion, people asking questions, me giving answers, us talking, people talking to each other. That was what I wanted it to be. And so I'm very thankful and honored that I had that opportunity to do that, and that I was willing to do that. And, I didn't let off that, like, this is my vision for that night. And I made sure it happened, and it did.
So we talk about visions and inspirations and everything like that. What specific authors, poets, podcasters have inspired or influenced your work?
When it comes to poetry, Langston Hughes, I love Langston Hughes. Matter of fact, he's the reason why I like poetry. When I was in elementary school, I learned about the Harlem Renaissance, and that was just so cool to me. I was like, wow, all these Black people doing all this dope stuff that we don't really talk about. I was like, okay. And I, read his poems, and I was like, poetry. And I always liked writing. Like, I used to write short stories. I used to get excited when we had like the county writing test and stuff. You had to write like a little short story. Like, I was just into that. And so poetry was another form of writing, and it offered more freedom than regular writing. And so Langston Hughes, big influence. I like Jason Reynolds, James Baldwin, Nikki Giovanni. Her and I have the same birthday. I met Nikki Giovanni, and I totally fanned out. It was like I had all these things I wanted to say to her, and then when I finally met her, I was just like, So it's so nice to meet you, and then just everything just escaped my mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, man, because I don't know if you ever seen her, but she's a tiny lady, but
Mm-hmm.
she has so much power when she's on stage, like her words.
She is,
And
yeah.
so, writers like that, and then like podcasters, I like Questlove Supreme. That's one of my favorite podcasts. And man, there's so many. The Hilltop, I like their podcast. I like my podcast.
Yeah, throw
I co
yourself in there.
I co-host one.
Lovely.
Yeah, I co-host one with my friend Charlie. And it's called Pass the Remote, and we talk about TV shows and movies. And then I have another podcast, Black Smoke Barbecue Podcast, and we talk about barbecue and things like that. And so, I like This Week in Barbecue with Rasheed Phillips. I listen to a lot of podcasts. So, as far as inspiration, I would say Interludes by Val the Voice Johnson. She's been on my show, and I've been on her show, and she's given me some inspiration and some ideas for my podcast, like some episodes that I'm kind of working on. We'll see if I get them done, but she has such a production with her podcast, like the intro music, the guy at the beginning, introducing her, and it's such a vibe, and it's such a like she has an audio version, and she has a YouTube channel where she goes live Tuesdays called Talk Tuesdays, and she has a co-host, and he talks about sports, and that whole dynamic is like a television show. And I really like that. So she's been inspiring me to try to, do some new things. And seem like every time I talk to her, she gives me an idea. And I'm just like, man, that's a good idea. And I'm like, thank you for giving me more work, but I appreciate it though. This is some good stuff.
Yeah. And so you touched on collaborations and different projects that you want to do. Like, I like the idea about, mentoring the younger boys and stuff, like how to channel in their emotions by writing it down on a piece of paper. But what are some other collaborations or projects that you're working on?
As far as working on, it would just have to be like my podcast that I co-host with. Currently I don't have anything as far as writing. I have a friend that we were supposed to be working on something, but we haven't circled back to that yet. And I did do like a collab poem with about 2 or 3 other poets. So I have done some collaboration poems and things like that in the past. Matter of fact, another poet reached out to me about maybe doing a poetry event, but we'll see. But it's not in the works, so I don't really have anything in the works except for my co-hosting podcast. That's about it right now.
So have you had, this is a side note, so have you done poetry slams before or anything?
I am not a slam poet. I have a lot of respect for them. Like when they get into it, they get into it.
They get into it. I had asked that as a side note if you ever had experience doing that, because when I was reading, look, I'm gonna go ahead and do this again. Love letters.
We should be plugging the new book.
New book. But this one, we were taking a look at this love letter one, the first one. And I was like, okay. But when we did that, when we were looking at that, when I was reading the poems out of this, I was like, okay, I could see somebody actually doing that. Oh, yeah. With the music in the background and everything.
Yeah.
Awesome. Love Jones. It's one of my favorite movies too. One of my favorite movies. And that's another thing that I'm like, yeah, Love Jones. I definitely can see that. Nice vibe.
Got the sax going. Yeah.
Yeah. Some people call me Love Jones too. Yeah. As a matter of fact, when I was on Val's podcast for the first time, she played a clip from Love Jones in our episode. After she edited, and I was like, wow, you got little clips in your podcast and stuff. I'm like, you really got me thinking. Because I was asking her how to do it, because with podcasting, it's certain stuff that you can't play for copywriting and stuff. And she has I forgot what kind of license it is, and she has like a news podcast, so she's able to do that. But it works so well. Like she did an episode on A Different World, and she had all these clips in there, and I was like, this is a really good podcast.
Oh, dope.
That is dope.
So this is the famous question that's our last, well, no, it's almost our last question. Yeah. But it's the last question. What 3 words that can also be used as affirmations, because we're big on affirmations here, would you use to describe your business, can you explain, for example, I am creative and why you chose those words you're choosing?
My 3 words would be hope, love, and inspiration. Hope, because I want to leave hope with whatever I do, whether it's my podcast, whether it's my poetry. I want some hope to be in there. Inspiration, I want people to be inspired by what I'm doing. I want people to be inspired by my podcast, the guests I have, my poetry, my poetry blog post every Wednesday, and love. I'm on a journey to spread love in a world that seems to be full of hate. And so in all of that, at the root of everything is love.
So awesome. Thank you again for being here with us.
Thank you.
And I guess I'm gonna add extra homework to you. You should do a poetry slam.
Yes.
I mean,
let's throw that out there.
Okay, let's say you would do that, right? Let's just say that. What poem would you choose for that?
Yeah.
I don't know, because those guys, like, they sell it. Like, they give emotions. So I mean,
you know, be aggressive, like, yeah, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
You can do it. Or you could come, or he could come like the Neo Soul Maxwell type vibe. You can come in smooth.
Yeah.
Have them just flow with you and be like her.
Yeah. Right? I'm saying.
Yeah,
right?
I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it because I have a lot of respect for those people, man. Like, and I got some inspiration to really think about it. I had a guest on. Her name is Huwa. She's Nigerian, and she does, like, her poetry is almost like scenes from a movie. Like, she puts makeup on, has like the dark background, and she really gets into it. And she said that that's how she does it. She look at it as acting. And, you know, talking to her, I was like, you know, maybe I could do this because,
absolutely,
you know, I kid around and clown around a lot. And I, you know, I think I could probably, I was interested in doing some acting at one point, never followed through with it, like plays and stuff when I was in high school, but, you know, never followed through it. But I was like, if I look at it like acting, I probably could do it. I probably could. But for the most part, like, you're just going to get me reading. It's not going to have, I mean, I try to throw a little motion in there, but yeah, I'll work. That's big. That'll be my goal for this year.
I want to see that.
You would do good. You got some cheerleaders in your background. We're gonna be supporting you. You can do it. You can do it.
I definitely can see it. Good to have somebody back in their feelings, because I always think about like my feelings back, like in the day. Maybe I've been tainted, but I always think about like high school, how I felt about people, and I used to always write. So that's what I'm like thinking about.
And even your latest book, just knowing that pain is not the only thing that you use, you know, just the title itself is powerful.
Oh yeah.
Pain is not the only thing we use to paint anything with, you know, it's just like that. That right there, you just speaking that title and just doing a selection from that is powerful. So I mean, people don't really realize how much power they have. So I'm just saying in your words and stuff. So you are gifted. I know that's a craft, but I think you do good with it.
Thank you.
I felt like we were interviewed, you know, with featuring you, but this was kind of like therapeutic.
It was very smooth.
That's
and then your writing is smooth too. So yeah, I think that would help.
You had me challenging myself. Dang, have I ever made a man feel uncomfortable saying something?
Yeah, I mean,
my younger self. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like, see, that's the conversations we need to have, because I really feel like the biggest thing when it comes to disagreements, a lot of the times it's a misunderstanding or misinterpretation, because we all don't, like, words have different meanings. Like, one word could mean 3-4 different things depending on who you're talking to, and communicate. And that's crazy, because I thought my first book would be a book about communication. Like, I had been working on that book for a long time, and I had like little examples, little stuff I pulled from books, and I don't even know where I have to look for that book. But I think that we don't really communicate like we're supposed to. We talk to each other, but we don't communicate. And when you communicate with somebody, you make sure that everybody, or both people, whoever's involved, have a mutual understanding. Like, this is how I interpreted it. Okay, but you meant it that way. Now, from me understanding how you meant it, I know where to go with it. Like some people get offended by hearing somebody say something and it meant the total opposite of how the person take it, or through text messaging and email. That is like the biggest way to misinterpret something.
Yeah.
You know, especially if you already feeling some type of way
Uh-huh.
and you see a message, you're just like, well, what do you mean by that? And it's like, I'm just saying
Uh-huh.
hello. What are you talking about?
Exactly. Like, girl, you stupid word. She
Yeah.
said I was stupid.
Or the infamous have a blessed day is like, do you really want me to have a
the
blessed
tone.
day?
You're
You
like,
try to
what
be
The
tone
funny.
is
tone
that?
and the context,
Mhm.
everything.
You can feel it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, you said it like that? No, I didn't mean it like that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
see, so that's another thing that's major to me is like communication. I think we don't talk enough, and then with these podcasts, it seems like they want to seem like men and women hate each other, but that's not true. I just think we don't talk to each other enough, and we don't gain like a level of understanding. And everybody's at this, I'm gonna get you before you get me, and you know, yeah, you want to be protective of your feelings, but you want to be open with them too. Like I went back and forth with somebody, one of my guests, about this thing. I was like, well, you can't. It's really no way to stop somebody from playing you. You can't avoid that. I mean, I don't care how much discernment you have because those things kind of happen. You know, there's no foolproof way to stop that. And so, a lot of times, if you're looking for the negative thing to happen, the negative thing will happen. And so you want to be cautious with your feelings and emotions, but you don't want to be so guarded that you're not willing to let somebody in who actually could be that person for you, or even like with not even romantic relationships, like friendships, you know, colleagues and things like that. You don't always have to be guarded. You want to protect yourself, but there's a difference between protecting yourself and just always being guarded.
That is true. You can't dodge that bullet all the time, and you waste
Yeah.
more energy
You
doing
can
that.
just pray for the best and just like, hey,
Yeah, because you take a risk in everything that you do. So
everything. You take a risk walking out the door.
You really do. But it has been such a pleasure. Thank you again for taking the time out of your busy schedule
Thank you
to
for
just
having
chat
me.
with us. And we're gonna look forward to you doing some type of, performance poetry. I just say I think there's great promise in that.
Okay. Well,
I see it too.
I see it.
I'll let y'all know.
That's what it does. It leaves you thinking about what that person left off. Like, dang,
Yeah.
it challenges you in a different type of way. So you have our snaps already.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
You have it. You have it. But if anyone wants to follow you or contact you, how should they be able to reach you?
Okay, so my website is thebrownsugarcafe.blog. You can reach me on Instagram, Facebook at the Brown Sugar Cafe. I'm also on TikTok. Not really, but I'm there. My YouTube channel, the Brown Sugar Cafe. I'm trying to build that up. There's a few things on there, so check it out. And just you can reach out to me there. My books are available on my website, thebrownsugarcafe.blog. And yeah, I think that's it.
All right. Well, you guys heard it, and we'll also share it too as well in the contents and on our Instagram page. If you want to look at this, it will be available on YouTube on our channel too. So thank you again for joining us, and we know we're gonna hear great things from you.
Thank you.
You already do us the great things. You motivated me. Like,
I know. I'm like, I haven't written anything in a while. I'm like, let me try something.
Oh, do it. Just start.
Yeah,
Just start.
motivate
Yeah.
me to write a book.
Right?
I'm
Hey.
Write something. Get
let
some
me write
out.
something.
Yeah.
Be inspired by some music. I don't know. You did pretty good with the music that you were listening to. Cause
Thank you. Thank you.
It's like some people gotta they'll get off track a little bit.
Yeah, nice little playlist.
Nice little playlist.
Yep. Well, thank you again for coming on, and we appreciate
Thank you. Thank you.
And until next time.
All right.